Hello and welcome to Journeys and Journals. I'm Bernie Martin Beck and I get to talk to the most interesting people around these parts. Well, it all started 10 years ago when they asked me to talk to a little bit of history. And I didn't ever expect to be behind on this side of the camera, but I said, I know my very first guest. So I have welcomed her back today, Erville Dayton, my friend. Now, you've known me how long?
Well, since you were born, I guess you'd say. I can remember holding you in my arms.
And you had arms full. Now, Erville stands all of 4 foot and 11 and a half.
Oh, thank you. We'll call it that.
And you were there. Now, did you have children at the time that you were holding me?
Oh, yes, the twins are older than you. They're 67.
And I'm 68, Erville.
Oh, you're 68. You're the oldest then. Oh.
Well, Erville was pregnant shortly after Bernie was born. Now, my mother was a woman about my size, and she carried the pregnancy of this little Bernie fairly comfortably. But then there was Erville at 4 foot 11. And what did you carry?
Well, I weighed 38 pounds when it was time, and I had never weighed that much in my life. 138 pounds, and I weigh 110 now, and I have been down to 94 pounds.
And the girls weighed how much?
Oh, about 9 pounds and 4 ounces.
The two of them together. And what was it like to be a pregnant mom of 9 pounds and something, a baby?
Well, I didn't know any different, so it was just as easy to take care of two as
But
one.
you must have been as big as...
Shall I tell you what
Yes, please.
Mr. Shaw said? I met you at the post office. I didn't know whether to go around you or go over you. You filled up both doors. So,
Well, now, when the girls were born, they were both healthy and hearty.
yes.
But Mom wasn't.
Oh, no. We spent 17 days in the old hospital that faces A, and my bill was $278 for 17 days.
And that was for you and the girls?
For me and the girls.
And you named the girls something very special.
Fred, we weren't expecting twins, so the first time I saw Fred, he says I named mine Diane, which he had been saying he was going to do. And I had wanted to name after my girlfriend, Marjorie. And so I said, all right, I'll name mine Deanne.
Oh, folks, these Dayton girls have been internationally known.
Oh,
because
yes.
what was the organization that took them to Europe?
Well, Diane and Mike went after he retired from the Marines. He worked for Northrop Aircraft.
And weren't they exchange students?
Oh, Diane wasn't what you'd call an exchange student. In '59, she did her junior year of college in Denmark in a building that was 800 years old. And the class wanted to give her something to take home, and they gave her a brick from the old building. And you believe it or not, she still has it in her trunk.
Oh, a priceless treasure.
A priceless treasure.
Well, now, in case any of you didn't really believe, this is off my computer, and it says Josephine Journals. That was the name of the original show, because we thought it'd just be this one county. And I kind of like the idea, Josephine
in general.
being the only county named for a woman. And journals, well, so when Erville Dayton, and this is still our phone number, and it was 9/17/1996. Well, we've come a long way since then. You used to live in the big house, I lived in the big house till we moved in
1943, and Fred left for the Seabees. And we lived in that house 35 years. And then in 1977, we built over behind the house on 5th Street, and I just moved out in June. So that puts me 50 years in one block.
Oh my, and the house that she was in was a historic
Yes,
home.
it was the Dixon home. It had been built the same year as the Flanagan home, which became the Yankee Pot Roast.
And they were side by side, but Yankee Pot Roast needed a parking lot, so what did they do with your house?
The city bought our house. It's a parking lot.
And they just picked up
the house, yes, and moved it out through the big parking lot on the corner of A.
And moved it up, put it down our new foundation, and there it sits so proudly. You've got lots and lots of things to brag about, Erville Lee. Let's talk about that son of yours.
Well, he's very active politically, and
that doesn't
Roseburg, and he is active in the National Rifle Association. Every time I get ready to say those 3 letters, I have to say National Recovery Act, and he frowns at me.
Oh, I understand. Well, this was the way it was back then. We had, I've kept an album just so I could remember the way things were, and there's the first, picture on the television, and then here it is, Erville Lee and Bernie, and you can see she didn't quite stand up to my shoulders then,
no.
and still doesn't.
No, I still don't.
Erville Lee, why did you come to Southern Oregon, and did you ever regret it?
I never, ever regret it, and I came as a bride. We got married, and we were in Grants Pass about 4 or 5 days later. And by the way, there was snow on the ground as we came over the Siskiyous.
And what date is that?
Oh, about March the 2nd or 3rd.
Oh, what did you...
But it used to snow more here than it does, and it definitely rained more. But I had no idea what I was getting into.
Oh, big city girl, a little big city girl, came all the way to Oregon after this. You'd met Fred?
Oh, yes, I'd known Fred for several years. He used to come to Los Angeles and visit the Ray Fisher family. Emily Fisher had lived with Fred's parents when she worked for the telephone company there in Los Angeles.
So we're talking generation after generation.
Yep.
And they introduced you to...
Oh, yes. Emily came. I was out in the yard with Ray Jr., and she says, guess who's coming for dinner? Fred Dayton. And I thought, after all the things I've heard you say about him, I never dreamt I'd marry him.
Oh, and that he'd drag you off to rural America where there were real cavemen.
Yeah, the cavemen. And believe it or not, in 1935, when he came to L.A., he brought a skin for me to wear. And I did, and I got badly sunburned.
So there you were wearing your cave outfit, and people thought, she's a wild woman.
We went to San Diego, and I can't remember why it was there, except wasn't there a fair in San Diego?
I bet there was. Fred was a caveman for many years.
Mm-hmm. He was there when that couple got married.
There being in the Oregon caves?
In the Oregon caves. In those days, we used to have in the theater, we'd have, they'd show the news, Pathé News, and then a comedy before the main film started. And so it was, the film was made for the Pathé News showing the wedding, and a few of the cavemen, very few of them, were in the wedding pictures that they showed. But of course, the cavemen were helping carry all those cameras in, and they didn't have on anything but the skins, and they were cold. I've heard all of them tell about that.
I bet that's true. My dad was a caveman, but he was snap glasses, and I don't know if he wore skins. We only have one picture that, because most of the time he was behind the cameras taking
yes.
pictures of everybody else. You've brought some things here that, and this goes back to the girls in school.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe even back to your school days.
Oh, no, I went to school in Los Angeles.
And they didn't have bells that rang?
No, I don't think so. I don't remember seeing
Oh,
one.
I can almost remember the...
Yeah.
But Erville's been so kind to give me back a little of my own heritage. This happens to be one called Magic Scratch Remover, and it's a gift from Martin Moving Vans. How'd you happen to know that I'd like that?
Well, I moved it from 6th Street to 5th Street, and that's when it turned up along with a few other things, and those license plate things, the held license plates. But the last time I tried to polish with it, it worked. Still,
well, it is a marvelous little thing, and I don't know if it's finished 1930 or 40.
Oh, I imagine it's 30. I have a feeling it's been around forever.
On one end is something that's a little bit like a grease pencil. And on the other is furniture polish. And so you dab that on where you
wanted it. And
yeah, if you had a nick in your furniture. Oh, thank you, Erville. You know, people have been so kind to me. Today, I was given a pair of 1881 salt shakers, and I think these are going to go to Brent. He's going to be my nephew, Henry's son.
They're cute. I still have a pair.
Good, good. Well, Erville, you want to tell me about, did you wear your Zonda pin today?
Oh, it's in my purse. I forgot about it.
Why is Zonda so very important?
Well, the club was formed in 1947 by Helen Probst. And it was the first president. Mrs. Alf, the attorney, was the one that was behind it all. She had been active in New York City.
And Zonda is a international
An
international organization. For women?
For women. And
you must be in business.
You have to be in business. When I belonged, there was only one person from each business, which was all right for this little town.
And what business were you involved
Plumbing.
in? Erville Dayton worked at Dayton and Son Plumbing.
Plumbing,
Kept everything tidy.
Yes, I did that, and I kept books. You know what my math teacher told me in high school? What? Promise me, Miss Fulton, which was my maiden name, you'll get married and never keep books for anyone. There used to be a little English lady here that was always putting a whoosh or a hex on somebody. This when I first arrived in town. And I think Mr. Meisner did that to me. I kept books for the plumbing business, the real estate business.
Because Fred did many jobs.
Oh, he had, I think there were 4 or 5 sets of books. And I had to be sure the money went in the right account, too. You know, that kind of thing. But it was fun.
That teacher had no vision whatsoever.
No, whatsoever. I always wished I could have gone back and talked to him.
Because Fred was not only caveman and the plumbing business, but he became county
Assessor.
Assessor.
County assessor.
I promoted him to a county commissioner the other day.
Oh, no. The assessor was bad enough. Frankly, I don't know why anybody wants a public office. They're never appreciated.
Well, and city council's where I knew Fred. Just bragging a little bit about this family and why I feel so indebted to the Daytons. My folks died tragically, and they were young people. By that I mean younger than I am now, in their 60s. And Fred, your husband, came to me and said, Bernie, I will stand in their place. I think that actually meant I will pay your bills if you need them, just like your dad. I will go fetch you if you ever need it. I will see that you are okay.
Sure.
If at all possible. I was so, from that terrible week, that was probably the biggest impression left with me. And so I leaned on Fred.
Well, I'm glad you did.
And I said, Fred, I'd certainly like to interview you. And what did he say?
I don't remember.
Never, never did Fred ever get interviewed on tape. He had some kind of an aversion to it. What was it?
I don't know. I couldn't, he'd build up to something and then not. I told him, accused him of not wanting it, really.
Right.
He thought he did.
He would do the weather, right?
Oh, yeah, everybody enjoyed the weather. The sun shining on 5th Street when it was foggy on Lower River Road. That was the one the people likes the best.
They would have different people around the community that the radio station would call and say, what's the weather out on 5th Street?
Yeah.
Or all over the area.
Oh, yes, And it did snow in one corner of the county and not in the other.
Oh, Erville, where can I mean, I know the house is empty now. Fred built it for a business.
You mean on 5th Street?
On 5th Street.
I think he had in mind that would someday be attorney's offices.
Because it was right there across from the courthouse, but...
And it's handy to the courthouse and the city hall, and which is important to attorneys especially.
It was a good house, but not as grand a house as your other one.
Oh yes, but
the Flanagan house and the what's your name? Dixon house were grand, beautiful,
high ceilings,
elegant old homes on.
Very nice.
Was that called 6th Street then, or was it called?
It was 6th Street, but it wasn't 3. It was only 2 lanes wide.
One did. Yeah.
And then when they made it, began, well, when I-5 went around the town, why, that's when they widened 6th Street and put in the stoplights. And it was rather interesting to see loads of logs going down 6th Street and one side of the road and logs coming up the other side. And that street was narrow.
It was.
They took some land from us and across the street too when they widened it.
So much history, and not just in Grants Pass, but you have Roseburg history. What's that all about?
Well, we've never been involved there, but my son's been up there for way over 20 years, and he's been very active.
And you go up and enjoy his hospitality and Bertie's too. Where's your other daughter?
Deanne's here, and Diane lives in Florida.
But Diane's been all over everybody.
Well, they both have traveled a lot.
Like mother, like daughters.
Well, when Diane lived in Arabia, it was very easy and necessary to get out of the country for a few weeks. And then they were there 9 years.
And would you rendezvous with them when they went on these vacations?
No, Fred wouldn't go anywhere. Fred didn't want to travel.
Oh, so...
we went to Alaska in 1980, and 81 we went to the Caribbean, but that was it.
And when you were widowed, then you went, how many trips have you been on?
I've been on 7 cruises, one 24-day bus ride.
Oh, Erville.
I like that. That was through the British Isles. And they could do it again, maybe. I don't know.
You took along a daughter.
Oh, yes. Yeah, she'd been to Ireland and in England briefly.
Now, is your family heritage Irish or English?
Well, the Fulton families were in England, and they said they chose the wrong king, so I guess that would be King Charles. And they went over to Ireland, and when they came to America, it was from Ireland. But
I think my family was a peasant family in Ireland who they paid us to get off the land, but I'm not sure about that.
Not sure.
But I've been able to trace that there were the crown would pay, or the landowner would pay to get your farmers off, and they'd pay £2 to go to Canada and £4 to go to America and $7 to Australia, and we ended up in Canada.
Oh.
So I think that maybe, oh, what a time. What about coming back home? Every time.
Oh, yes.
That you fly in to Medford.
I am always glad to get home. There's no place like home. Even the 2 rooms I have now.
2 rooms where?
Over on A Street in the retirement home.
You meet a lot of people with
there's 90 some odd residents, and I haven't begun to meet them all, and they go by their first names, which leaves us with 7 or 8 Marys, and
but one Erville.
I wish they would give you their whole name. That way you could, to me, I could separate them easier than by their first names.
Or
when in Rome.
But have you ever known another Erville in all your life?
No. And I have decided in the last few years that Erville is definitely a last name in France.
Oh.
And the telephone book was full of them. And but of course Mother gave me the middle name of Lee instead of Rene, R-E-N-E, which is really Renee in French. So I think the lady I was named for didn't realize she had a French name, and my mother sure didn't.
And here you are, a little American girl, and your family goes way back in American history.
Yes, they fought in the Revolutionary War, and
so you are a DAR, or you could be?
Oh, I'm DAR, and then their descendants moved to Texas before it was a state, and so we're first comers in Texas, and then we came to California, and nobody ever went back.
And nobody ever went back. Now, are the children interested in your pioneer roots?
I've traveled with the girls. I've always been.
But do they know about when you first came to fight in the war? You must have come before
yes,
that.
I have the family history of being in the Revolutionary War, and Elder John Parker and his father Nathaniel, who worked for George Washington. So that he was supposed to have been when the Indians dumped the tea in the bay.
What was his job? Do you have any idea?
Well, when I heard about what he did for George Washington, I realized he had him out as a pioneer looking for people, newcomers, to move west. They wanted to get away from. Well, they knew it was out there, and they knew somebody was going to grab it. And Mexico, of course, wanted Texas and all of that. And so, anyway, they kept thinking along that line.
Well, it was because of Fred and his other career as real estate that we were able to find our place.
Yes.
I said I needed to start, we weren't just starting out newly married. I said, well, if we don't get some property now, and so I went to he showed us a piece, and then he said, well, Bernie, how much can you afford to pay? And I said, well, $100 down. He said, fine. And how much a month? And I said, 25. So that's how we ended up on our place thank you, Fred, for being willing to go with this 20-some-year-old kid who...
Oh, well, wonderful. Well, everybody has to have a start, something that gives them a nudge along the way, and the good old golden rule.
Well, I brought that along just to see what you could tell me about it.
I don't know. I think you know more about it. I never had the chance to run up and down where the stairs went.
They had a ramp, and the ramp you had to turn at the top and,
Yes.
and all the way down and a turn at the bottom.
Bottom, oh yes.
And later in life, they put up a sign that said no running on ramps. But either I was too young to read it.
You couldn't read. I don't think you could read.
Or I was before that time. It was just so much fun. Few of the relics, treasures that I've collected, and I knew that would fit right in.
Grants Pass.
Fred was a member of the class of what?
33. He was in that parade back in 1988 when 66 classes were represented.
And he was the, oh boy, I'll tell you, Mel Ingram, you can probably write a book about, they even named the field after him. But Grants Pass caveman, I thought they were the only cavemen in the whole world until I was back in the East and found out that they had a caveman mascot too. And so I had to gather up some pictures and send them real soon. Erville, you've been such a support and encourager. Here you were, my first guest on Journeys and Josephine Journals.
That's been wonderful.
Welcome you back, and we'll just continue. Maybe in another 10 years, you'll be my guest again.
Oh, goodness gracious, look where that had put me.
I don't know, do you want to tell?
Well, 88.
Oh, and when you're 98, we'll do a party.
I'll come back.
You know, it's just been so important. I guess you're, 20 years older than I am, and those kinds of friends are the kind that little kids look up to, and I've always looked up to you, though I grew so much taller than you.
Oh, you sure did. Well, you accused him of putting a book on my head to keep me from keeping up with everyone else. But I've had a lot of fun down here. And I always say to a tall person, how's the weather up there? And they'll say, well, how is it down there? And I've had a lot of fun along the way.
And you've never complained?
No, I don't intend to ever complain.
Why do we love her so much, folks? I'll tell you, thank you, Erville. You have been here for me, and we're here for you, too.
Well, I'm so glad. I'm so glad to have you, is what I'm trying to say.
Thank you so much, and we look forward to that interview 10 years from now.
All right.
I'm Bernie Martin Beck saying thank you so much for tuning in and traveling with me.